Welcome to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My special guests today are Wendy and Brad Courtney, my good friends here from the Prescott area, and they are at the front end of Prescott's Doc HolliDaze, an event going into its third year. This is one of the newest active Western history symposiums in the Western United States. It is was a vision of Wendy and Brad's 3 years ago, which began with the idea that Doc HolliDaze should be recognized for his time living here in Prescott. When you all got involved with that plaque project and, saying, you know what, this is someone who should be remembered, should be a historical marker that tells his story, did you have any idea that idea that probably started somewhere over a dinner table or a table at the palace over some cold drinks and some hot food with friends who were enthusiastically celebrating the West, and someone said, what are we going to do about Doc HolliDaze, right? How did this happen, Brad?
So we'll start with, it actually kind of started right across the street from where we are at the archives.
Yeah, the Charlotte Hall Museum,
Right.
Library and Archives.
Exactly. I was in there, and I was, at the time, I had this idea for a book for quite some time. Ron Williams and I would sit at the palace and talk about all the connections between Prescott and Tombstone, who was here first and all that. And then I got to a point where I go, I'm going to write a book about Prescott Tombstone connection, and that's what it was going to be called. And I started working on a chapter about Doc HolliDaze, and that got bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's a volunteer here, Dee Sue Kissel. She is just a great researcher, and I gave her the basics about where Doc HolliDaze, what we know about Doc HolliDaze in Prescott. Lived with Richard Elliott, housed with housemate of John Gosper, the Secretary of Territory. And we knew it was on Montezuma Street, and I'm sitting there researching something else. She comes up with the property records of Richard Elliott, who owned the house. And I go, you did it. You found out where the house was. And my immediate thing was, we need to do a plaque. So I went to Wendy and said, let's start doing a campaign. And for that, and that's kind of where it started.
And then we did a fundraiser, and we found some very generous people that gave us some money. Eclampus Vitus, the Questers, Arizona Constables Association.
Both of the Questers.
Western Heritage Center was involved at the time, right? Became a kind of a community point of pride where people who love our territorial history and want to preserve and promote our Western history here in Prescott all got involved. Yeah, and then you're like, well, if we're going to have a plaque dedication,
let's have a party.
Let's have a party. And you didn't choose just any random date. This event is built around the birthday of our hero of our story, right?
Exactly.
John Henry HolliDaze.
Exactly. And that was a Wednesday. And half of the world showed up. And we go, hey, we might be onto something here.
I remember that bright and sunny day down on Montezuma, right? North Montezuma, and North Montezuma and Gurley.
Yeah, it wasn't unseasonably cold or anything like that.
No. Yeah. And there was a grand crowd that just kept, you'd stand there and you see people coming from all corners. They parked and were walking into the street, crowding the into the street, and traffic had to go around people
dressed to the nines,
and waiting for dignitaries to come over and say a few good words about Doc HolliDaze.
Of which you were one, Mr. Rosebrook.
Well,
yes.
I was very honored to be asked to do that, and somebody who's been a fan of Doc HolliDaze since he was a kid. I don't know when I first became aware of Doc HolliDaze, but it was pretty early on because I was an early riser, and my dad would put me in front of the TV and say, your mom and I are going back to sleep, so here's Channel 5. Gene Autry's got a whole lineup of Westerns. So somewhere in there, between there and the library, Doc HolliDaze became a reality for me. And what's interesting about Doc HolliDaze in Prescott is that whether it's the novels or the histories, the biographies, the movies, there's always been like this little presence. Somebody, depending on the producer and the writer, they decide, or in either commentary or a throwaway line, Doc, when you were in Prescott, or all that, you had to leave Prescott quickly. And of course, his noted gal pal, his girlfriend, Big Nose Kate Elder, of course, plays a piece of that story and the legend, the myth, and the reality. And I think you discovered in that first year, 3 years ago, that there was interest from across the country and around the world of people to come to Arizona, to Prescott, where in many ways that Doc, Kate story, real and imagined, in Arizona leading up to Tombstone, not the past life in Texas and otherwise, but really where you get that laser focus on where the legend begins, before they make it to Tombstone. Prescott is where that starts here in Arizona for Doc HolliDaze.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm currently writing a book. It's called Doc HolliDaze in Prescott. I did a booklet, but it's the theme of the book is actually Doc HolliDaze at the Crossroads. I could have called it Doc and Kate at the Crossroads, but I'm going to make a companion book with Kate. But it started here, and it's been a lot of misunderstanding, and you are implying here, where did the interest in Doc HolliDaze and Prescott begin? And it was with that movie.
Right.
You know what movie I'm talking about?
Tombstone.
Oh, that one. Yeah,
1993.
Some guy named Val Kilmer or something like that really did he made Doc very attractive.
Right. Well, let's step back here for a minute. I always like to ask this question. I know that the three of us, our childhoods in our lives have come to intersect here in Prescott. Brad, you've talked a lot about growing up in Michigan. You went to college in Indiana. Is that right?
Exactly.
Right. And a college athlete and life in Michigan, rural Michigan. Wendy, your life is duality of rural Colorado, right? And then kind of urban growing Phoenix in the 1970s.
Yeah, I ended up in college in Phoenix, and then moved to Tucson, decided the desert wasn't the thing, and moved to Prescott in 1993.
Right.
Spent a little time in Colorado in the late 2006 to 2016 era, and then could not wait to get back to Prescott.
Right.
So
You began where? Where did you?
I was born in Denver.
Oh yeah. What time did you go to Kansas? Is what I was asking.
Oh, I was 2.
So you grew up in Kansas in the plains of eastern Colorado before coming to finishing high school in Arizona in Phoenix. And so I grew up in Los Angeles and spent much of my summers and years. My family was from Arizona. So Michigan, the American Southwest, Doc HolliDaze. Do you remember going out to Rawhide or Doc HolliDaze being part of kind of you're living in the Southwest, old Tucson and Arizona, everyone liked to bring Doc HolliDaze and Wyatt Earp into the story. Do you remember much of that as your childhood here in Arizona?
I remember old Tucson because I did live in Tucson from the late 80s to the early 90s. But I don't remember them making a big deal out of Doc. It was just this was where the Westerns were filmed. Right.
And there was a big bridge between the Earp HolliDaze story being part of the popular culture, and I think that's the significance of kind of the rebirth of the town of Tombstone, and the two films of 1993-94, Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, following the popularity of, Unforgiven and Lonesome Dove and Dances with Wolves. There was kind of a rebirth of popular Western culture in the early 90s in television and film. And obviously, for the last 33 years, Tombstone has really helped and inspired a lot of historians to dive deeper below the legend and seek the truth of the history. And this weekend that's coming up here, August 14th and 16th, it's Prescott's Doc HolliDaze, this symposium that's going to benefit Charlotte Hall Museum and the Wild West History Association, is really, I think, it reflects that undying passion for this story. And, Western historians and writers of the American West, they grab onto a topic. It could be the Earps and HolliDaze, Geronimo and the Apache Wars. It could be Bill Hickok and Deadwood, Custer, in the Battle of Little Bighorn. This is the 150th anniversary of those last two. Hickok was killed in the summer of 1876, and of course we just celebrated or commemorated the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Little Bighorn.
And we were just in Albuquerque at the Wild West History Association Roundup, and their focus was on Billy the Kid, which is a whole another...
That's right, a whole other genre of men and women and researchers who are just passionate about every detail. And We know that in 1876, Wyatt Earp was in Dodge City, which is really at the beginnings of the the cattle trade, and the cattle drives had shifted from eastern Kansas to western Kansas. And so you really have done something extraordinarily here with this organically, to create this special weekend. We're going to take a quick break, thank our sponsors, and we're going to come back and dive into Doc HolliDaze 2026, August 14th and 16th here in Prescott, Arizona. Get all the details and get people excited about coming and attending, because we have historians coming from around the United States and around the world to participate in this special symposium on one John Henry Doc HolliDay.
Thank you, Brad and Wendy and Stuart. We are off to another great show. And thank you, listeners, for being a part of that. My name is Stan. I'm the radio man who helps Stuart and the wonderful people at Charlotte Hall Museum put this all together. And thanks to them and thanks to you. And as we take a few moments here to thank the wonderful sponsors from Prescott who also make this program possible. We salute them. For over 45 years, Blind Brothers Arizona has been the heart of window style in Prescott. From blinds, shutters, drapes, they will custom design and install with expert precision, tailored just to you, whether it's for your home or your office. You can trust the name that locals rely on. Visit blindbrothersarizona.com today, or call them at 928-776-1845. Once again, that's 928-776-1845 for a free consultation. Blind Brothers Arizona, the original since 1979.
History matters. For nearly 100 years, the Charlotte Hall Museum has preserved our community's story, and over at Findlay Toyota, they believe in that same legacy of trust and reliability. That's why we're proud they support us here at the Charlotte Hall Museum. Just as Toyota has a long history of building vehicles you can depend on, Findlay is committed to our community's future. Go see their amazing selection of new and used Toyotas. Experience a legacy of quality for yourself. Findlay Toyota on Willow Creek Road in Prescott.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. Special guests today are Wendy and Brad Courtney, who are the founders and directors of Doc HolliDaze. This is the third annual event that's going to be held here in Prescott, Arizona, the territorial capital, the first territorial capital of Arizona, founded in 1864. And this weekend is attracting men and women, grassroots historians, academics, aficionados of Doc HolliDay, the Wild West, to travel long distances to come to Prescott to celebrate, honor, and argue about the life of Doc HolliDay, Kate Elder, and the creation of a myth and legend. And so let's talk a little business side of it. I'm going to turn to Wendy. Wendy, you kind of have picked up the beginnings of this with Brad that first year. It just happened organically. How many people attended that first year? 150?
150, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all held at the Hacienda.
Yeah, the reception was held at the Hacienda.
Following the sign.
More people than we
dedication.
Expected, which was awesome.
Maybe Bob Bowles Bell said 300.
Yeah.
I don't think he can count that. I don't think that was quite how many people were
So
there. But
2 years later, here we are in the third year. And Wendy, you've learned a lot about putting together events like this. And,
yeah, I learned the hard way. He's still learning every day.
So we've got a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday weekend event here.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you learn in the first year that you're doing different this year? Because I know you got some repeat historians and you're coming back to Charlotte Hall as well. But this year we're kicking things off at Charlotte Hall before you go downtown. Is that right?
Yes, so Friday afternoon, August 14th, starting at 5 here at Charlotte Hall Museum, we are having a Victorian garden party. That is $40. That will include some light bites, a skit by the Prescott Regulators and their Shady Ladies, which they were actually outside putting that together this afternoon.
And it's going to be about Doc and Kate.
They're writing the skit about Doc and Kate.
They're really trying to make
they're
it
really working hard on it.
as accurate as you can in that situation.
We've got Chip Hanna. He actually lives in Phoenix, but he plays at the Palace on Saturday nights. He's going to be our musical act.
Is that here?
That'll be here.
Oh, how about that?
On
Fantastic.
the grounds of the Charlotte Hall Museum. And then, people, hopefully the weather cooperates because it's going to be mainly outdoors and people can walk around your beautiful grounds here and look at the buildings and look at the beautiful gardens and just have a good time.
Well, we have actually created a second zone. If monsoons come in, we will have the transportation hall as a secondary indoor place for guests to stand out of the rain.
Thank you.
We all have to be grateful for the rains that are coming in right now. We had a long stretch of dry, warmer than usual winter, which nobody wants. We want the snow. That's why we live here we don't want the snow like Michigan, but we do want our share of snow. And but it was a dry, warmer than usual winter, and then the spring was didn't matter what kind of rain dance you did, there was none brought our way. Very, very light rains, and so this last 2 weeks we've really been getting some significant rainfall, making up for our loss.
And we'll send it up to Colorado because they're getting hit hard with fires.
Yeah, we need to do that. We need to share. And what I remember about last year that I really enjoyed was just the enthusiasm of the men and women who came here to Prescott. Many of them had been here before. Many of them, though, this was their first time. Many of them were staying at the Hacienda Historic Hotel. We have many hotels in the downtown area, along Whiskey Row and off of Sheldon, and so great places for people to come and stay. And I'm sure you're having a big crowd of your guests are coming to stay there at the Hacienda with the seminars there on Saturday. Charlotte Hall, we are looking forward to being the group coming here and making sure that if they want to come back to the museum that weekend, they can do that. We have a nice new exhibit. One of the ways that Brad and I got into talking about Wyatt Earp and Doc HolliDaze early on, and with Ron Williams, was how Doc traveled to Arizona. And so we have an exhibit here on campus now called All Roads Lead to Prescott, through the eyes of photographer Terrence Moore on Route 66.
Oh, cool.
But you have to step back and realize why Prescott is such a dynamic city today, why our history is so important to us as one of Arizona's, we're Arizona's original territorial capital. And that is because we're the territorial capital, we were the center of commerce, and all roads were leading in and out of Prescott at that time period. And our leaders before us worked very hard to make sure that railroads and roads and highways, as we celebrate our centennial of 89.
And that's part of the theme of my Doc HolliDaze and Prescott book. It was his personal crossroads, but it was the crossroads at the time. A lot of people were heading down to Tombstone, but before that, you had a speaker here, I think his last name is Peoples, and he talked about how the native people, this would be a central point for the northern tribes and southern tribes to come together and meet here.
East and west.
So it's been a crossroads in many, many different ways.
For millenniums, that's right.
Yeah.
And I was in Clarkdale yesterday talking about how aridity defines life in the Southwest. And, water is abundant at a certain level here in Prescott. It was different in 1864 as the streams ran. But, water defines your trails, and those trails led in and out of Prescott.
Aridity.
And
It's a great word.
Like
Oceana.
And what's interesting about Doc and Kate, and I think you're having someone, we're going to get into who your presenters are, but I sure would have liked to have been on that buckboard when Wyatt and his brother James and their mutual wives, partners, and I think James's adopted children arrived from Dodge City into Las Vegas, New Mexico in October 1879 and said, "Hey, Doc, hey, Kate, you guys want to join us? We're heading to Prescott and Tombstone beyond that." And they traveled. We think of them all so glamorous, right? They're all dressed up in the movies, and and imagine, am I right? Wyatt Earp had bought a buckboard because he thought he was going to start a stage line when he got to Tombstone, right? So that means they just threw in their bags like a station wagon, like we're going on a road trip. You want a road trip?
It might have been bigger than a buckboard, but because he sold that, we're going to talk about Kinnear. He sold his equipment to Kinnear, and it was used as a stagecoach, so it could have been something more than a buckboard.
But those early buckboards, they turned them into stages. Yeah. And I think, that was going to be his entry level into that. He was leaving gambling, he was leaving law enforcement, he was going into the stage business. Right. So he said, we got room, so throw in your bags and jump in the back. So road trip, Wyatt Earp and Maddie and Doc and Kate in the back. All right, you think they had an 8-track tape player?
And what's interesting is, we think Wyatt and Doc were close all along, but according to Kate, she said that it was the trip between Las Vegas, New Mexico, and Prescott where they really bonded, and that you have to read her memoirs with a suspicious eye, but that makes sense. That rings true.
It's kind of an early RV, right? You're
and
either
how long
going to bond.
Did that trip take?
It was probably at least 3 to 4 weeks, and so you're going to bond. You're camping together every night.
Hanging out all the time.
There's no Motel 6 along the way, right? No. You're bedding down
you can't
on
get
the
away
ground
from each other, so you might as well hang out and get to know each other.
That's right. You're making you would have stopped in some of at the forts and the towns along the way to get the news, but you were on the move and you were camping rough.
Right.
So
no s'mores or anything like that.
That's
probably.
right. And you rarely. That's the interesting thing about trying to peel the layers back on history. Whenever you make movies or you write a novel, you compress that story, right? You kind of leave that story to the imagination. But I think why you and I and Ron have had such fun times talking about those routes of travel, it actually came with Bob Bosbell, the owner of True West Magazine, who asked me to write a story about following Doc HolliDaze in Arizona. And, you start peeling that back and you get into the best biographies of Wyatt Earp and Doc HolliDaze, and you might find a few pages, and it was actually Allie, one of the Earp women that was traveling that day, traveling from Dodge City to Prescott, who wrote in her diary, we stopped in Zuni to water up and grain up and get news of the trail. And I think it's in...
it might have been Kate. It might have been Kate,
Well,
because Allie was here already, but so it might have been from when Virgil and Allie were coming this way.
It might be. We'll look it up. We'll look it up here in a break. But I think it's just the importance of the women's side of the story is another part of it that you've talked a lot about, and that I think that when people start to doubt the memories of the women as compared to the men, I think that it really lessens their story if you don't take their memory as equal to what happened, and because their side of it is equally important. And we know that Kate was right there. Her diaries later on in her interviews are important to the record.
Right, and she wrote them right over the hill there, which amazes me.
Right here in Prescott. Is there going to be a walk out to see Kate, Big Nose Kate's grave while people are here?
There's going to be, we're going to, you want to talk about that, the Kinnear thing?
Yeah. So J.D. Kinnear, he is actually buried in the Pioneers Home Cemetery, but he did not have a marker.
Oh.
And so the Wild West History Association has created and funded a marker for him.
That's fantastic.
So on Saturday afternoon, after the Wild West History Forum, we're going to go out to the Pioneers Home Cemetery, and they're going to do a gravestone dedication for Mr. Kinnear.
The Wild West History Association does such a great job of that.
They really do.
I have read about their successes in memorializing men and women who have been forgotten, or their grave marker has disappeared or never was. What a great service that this is
because nobody would know he existed, and then if you don't know he existed, you don't know his story.
Right.
And his story is actually very interesting.
Yeah, he died, right? He was the Pioneers Home.
Yeah, and his name shows up when you're reading. It's like, misdirection, because you read the story about Tombstone, you see the photographs that reference the Kinnear stage line, and then you're off. Then your eye leaves that name, you recognize it, gets repeated, but you don't ask the next question. And I think that this forum that's being brought together here, that we're going to talk about in our next break. The people who are coming here, many of your authors who are coming to this forum, they're the ones asking questions about the rest of the story. The men and women who make up the fuller story of what happened in Arizona between 1879 and 1882 surrounding the Earps and Doc HolliDay. We're going to take another break and come right back with Brad and Wendy Courtney as we discuss Doc HolliDaze in Prescott, Arizona, August 14th, 15th, and 16th. Just coming up here in a few weeks. We'll be right back on Arizona Roundup.
And thank you, Stuart. And yes, please write that down. August 14, 15, and 16. That's what this program is all about. It's about the wonderful legend of Doc HolliDay. And so go to your calendar right now and look at your schedule and say, that would be something that would be fun to do as a family, to go to a Doc HolliDay event at the Charlotte Hall Museum, and it benefits the good work of that fine organization. And thank you again to one of our fine sponsors.
Since 1995, Helkin & Horn Ad Agency has helped local businesses stand out and succeed. From print and radio to websites and social media, their talented team crafts your brand's message and offers a plan to get it out into the community. Want results backed by over 30 years of experience? Visit azadagency.com today. Helkin & Horn, where their slogan is Be Known.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Charlotte Hall Museum. I'm here this afternoon with Brad and Wendy Courtney in Prescott, Arizona, and we are having a grand time talking about Doc HolliDaze, the upcoming forum, 3 days in the third year of Doc HolliDaze, the vision of Wendy and Brad Courtney to celebrate the life of Doc HolliDay that has inspired now hundreds of people for the third year in a row to come back to Prescott and really celebrate the life, but also in partnership with Charlotte Hall Museum, the Wild West History Association, the Hacienda, many other supporters here. You are inspiring men and women to travel from around the world to participate in this and attend this forum. Now, let's go through a little bit. We talked that it's going to kick off on Friday, August 14th. People are arriving in Prescott that day, checking into their hotels, and the Victorian Garden Party and Pub Crawl. It starts here at Charlotte Hall.
Yes, it does.
We're going to be coming in Flower Alley.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have entertainment inside the Fred Vail Education Center auditorium. And there is going to be an outdoor garden party under our beautiful flower gardens and arboretum. People have the chance to go out and talk to Charlotte. We have a new statue of Charlotte Hall in our rose garden. And how long will they be on campus before you want to go down to Whiskey Row?
Yeah, that's the most important part, don't you think?
Well, you're getting a little bite to eat, getting some music, some camaraderie. It's kind of a little bit of a reunion. As now third year in a row, people are familiar. They're putting this on their calendar to come back, see some new faces, familiar faces, new friends, and then from here, from Charlotte Hall Museum, it's just 2 blocks away to Whiskey Row and the corner where Doc's plaque is. You're going to go to a little pilgrimage there, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. So, hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll hang out here at Charlotte Hall Museum. And then as part of the ticket price, everyone will receive a wooden nickel, which will be good for one Doc drink at one of our saloons. So we'll go on a saloon crawl. And our selected saloons are Jersey Lilies above the Palace, Kimmy's Secret Saloon, Fire and Sword, which is a speakeasy underneath the St. Michael Hotel, which is also one of our
And where's
hotels.
Kimmy's?
Kimmy's is in Bashford Courts.
Right, so it's down below,
and
too.
so it's down below, yeah. And then also Doc's Barbecue.
Nice.
Yeah.
So along the way, you can get something to eat, something to drink, and explore historical and mysterious and legendary Whiskey Row.
Whiskey Row and all of the assorted saloons there.
And Kimmy's is right there at Doc's back door where
That's
he
right.
lived. And there was Lucas Shaw is the expert on this. There was a saloon called the Sazerac that was popular with politicians and such, which Doc had an interest in that. But Kimmy's can claim that, hey, Doc came right over here because it was just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Well, there may have to be some kind of spontaneous gathering. I'm not encouraging everyone. Everyone should finish their drinks before walking back on Whiskey Row and down to Doc's sign for a little nighttime photograph after coming to Charlotte Hall and visiting Whiskey Row and Gurley.
The plaque that started it all.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. So this year, you got a great lineup of men and women who are going to be presenting, and your forum starts on Saturday morning. The forum is held over at it's called the Wild West History Forum, thanks to the Wild West History Association, and 9 a.m. Can you get there earlier for coffee and danishes? Or,
yes, the doors will open at 8.
Okay.
And we will sell tickets to that at the door because we've got plenty of room in the Elks Theater. The concession stand will be open, so you can buy popcorn at 9 in the morning if you're so inclined.
And that's let's just step back there real quick, because I think when we started talking about this, there have been some changes on the forum each year.
Yes.
Right. The first year was a one-day event at the Hacienda in the Marina Room. Is that right? And then last year we had there was opening night on Whiskey Row, correct? Western Heritage Center and Palace and tour and drink tickets and such, wood and nickels. And then Saturday was in the Marina Room at the Hacienda, right?
Yes, and we kind of overflowed, so we decided what better place to go than the Elks Theater, so we've rented.
So you're downstairs. You're not upstairs in the Crystal Room. You're in the main theater.
In the beautiful theater itself.
That's important for everyone to know. If you've not been to downtown Prescott before, our historic Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza, centerpiece of downtown Prescott. To the west of it, 2 blocks, the Charlotte Hall Museum, and 2 blocks to the east on Gurley, the other direction, is the historic Elks Theater on the south of Gurley, and across from it, the historic Hacienda Hotel, which is in its 99th year as we celebrate Route 66 this year, and with its centennial. Next year, the Hacienda will be celebrating its centennial. And so it's very convenient for those who are staying downtown, the Elks Theater and the Hacienda across the street from each other. And what a comfortable place to hold this forum at the beautiful restored Elks Theater. And so your audience will be very comfortable, and then your presenters, they're going to be on stage. Right. And will many of them have PowerPoints and some visual presentations along with their...
Some of them will. Would you like me to go through the speakers?
Why don't we do that? I'm gonna turn the program around here just to give you a cheat sheet, Brad. But you probably have it memorized.
I got it memorized, yeah. But it does help. So we have a great lineup, and people are commenting it already. Starting with Roy Young, who's been very influential in our new favorite word is Urbiana. It's not new to me, but everybody else laughs.
I had never heard it before.
Well, when you used to get little book catalogs before Amazon, you'd get a catalog from a used bookstore somewhere in the West, and there'd be Texiana, Urbiana, and so it's a...
I thought he was making the word up. I had no idea.
Billy Kittyana or Hickockiana. Only Urbiana. So Roy Young, and
you can create your own glossary, Brad.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna stick with Urbiana from Indiana. You just got to go with Iana. So Roy Young actually...
Holliday-iana.
Holliday-iana. Yeah, I tried that one. It didn't work. I actually wrote that in the book and crossed it out. But Roy Young has been very influential in the Wild West History Association. He was the brainchild, the guy behind the White Earp Anthology, which is with University of North Texas Press. But he wrote a book on Newton Earp. And what a lot of people don't know was Newton Earp was actually the older brother, but he was the oldest half-brother.
Right.
And he had quite a, career as a lawman.
Soldier, too, right? He's a veteran of the Civil War.
I think he was a Civil War, along with Virgil and I think James. But what people don't realize is Newton actually came here before Virgil. It was Newton who established on that sawmill that Virgil eventually settled on. And then Newton's wife didn't think there was enough Christian life here in Prescott, so she took off. And she was right. That about that year she took off, there was our first church building. And then we have all the way from London, England, Anastasia Sitnina, and she's been working on a master's degree on the OK Corral and its ramifications in England, but she's going to be talking about Doc in his early years, and especially about Doc in dental school, which is kind of interesting. Then Mike Mihalovich, I hope I'm saying that right, Mike, he wrote a great book on the Birdcage Theater.
That's right. Sure, it's right behind you on the bookshelf.
It's been one of the best-selling. It's been called one of the top 5 books ever written about a Tombstone subject, but he's going to be talking about Doc and Tombstone.
That's good.
And
Looking forward to that.
And then we have one of my favorite people, Mark Boardman. He's the Tombstone Epitaph editor. He works with True West as well, and pastor of a church. Just moved to Tombstone. We have a house in Tombstone, and he's just down the road from us.
I'm looking forward to seeing Mark. It's been a couple of years. I'm excited. Mark and I worked for years together at True West Magazine, and really admire his work. It's
just a
good man
person
to have in Arizona.
Yeah,
he's slowly retired from his pastoral duties, and
he's got a little gig at a church in Tombstone. So
I knew he wasn't going to give that up.
Yeah.
But he has retired from Indiana,
right,
his home state, to Tombstone, Arizona.
I forget how many years he was a pastor in Indiana, but he'll be talking on the Tombstone Epitaph, and then you talk about someone who's explored the other aspects of Urbana, Peter Brand, all the way from the land down under Australia. And I'm actually going to be interviewing Peter Brand. It's going to be that type of presentation, but he just wrote a book about Victoria Behan, Johnny Behan's wife.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I'm looking. Now, is that out on Amazon? Is that how you order it?
It is, but he's pretty much introducing it to the world here.
Okay.
So,
great.
I wrote the foreword to it, which is cool to see your name on it. Foreword by Bradley G. Courtney.
Well, and I think in an early part of the show, we were talking about how some art form, and I was in a meeting earlier today with folks from Prescott College talking about a mutual shared interest at this table. It's a very big topic that I'm interested in, is asking the question, how did you get interested in studying or writing about the American West? Now, we could be talking about Roman England, or the Romans, or the Egyptians, or the Civil War, or the Revolution, or the 60s, but there's something, it could be a teacher, it could be a photograph, could be a television show, could be a film, could be a children's level, youth biography, a song, some form, some art form, something that inspires you to pursue more knowledge, more information on a topic. And I think Peter Brand is a great example of that.
That was amazing. That was one of the first things I asked him was, how does a kid from Australia get involved in the Old West?
Right.
Why are you even interested in this? Don't you guys have your own really interesting history over there? And his dad was an illustrator for pulp novels and comic books, that kind of thing. And that's
Just
how he got
amazing
interested
work,
in it. Yeah.
And he, just like so many American Western TV shows, you watch that and then you start wondering, what was it really like? For me, it was my dad, and I saw a picture of Geronimo, and he just intrigued me, and I ended up being my master's thesis. But it began with my dad,
right?
And went from there. Then you get interested in other things along the way,
right? Well, and so it's Peter Brand. He's traveling. He's coming out. Is he going to be in Arizona for a few weeks while he's here doing research?
Probably
and traveling?
a week or so.
Yeah, he's coming down to Tombstone with us afterwards.
And Anna Setnina's never been to Prescott, so we're excited to have her here. And
right.
We're going to all go down to Tombstone, enjoy that too as well. After,
nice.
If you want to come along.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a packed weekend, and we're going to take a quick break here. But before we do, let's remind people, Wendy, if people want to attend, how do they reserve a space?
The website is www.PrescottTombstoneConnection.org. PrescottTombstoneConnection.org.
All right.
PrescottTombstoneConnection.org.
Write that down.
And
we'll say it again.
If you type in Doc HolliDaze forum, will Google help you come to this to your website?
It might.
I would hope so, but we'll have to try it. Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. We'll come back and talk with Brandon Way about more details about their passion for the story of Doc HolliDay, and here in Prescott, Arizona, bringing this special weekend, which really is becoming a great tradition in August here in the summers of Prescott, celebrating our pioneer past, our frontier history, and the legend of Doc HolliDay and the Earps. We'll be right back on Arizona Roundup.
And indeed, the stories keep rolling on. Hey, again, an advantage for you. Something great for you and the family. In fact, after our program last week, and maybe you want to go back and listen to that, it's about the Junior Bonner anniversary that is coming up on August 5th. There we go. Another day to put on your calendar. August 5th, the story of the great film Junior Bonner and all of the people who went into that. As one commentator said, hey, that was one of the premier programs in Western literature and history. Keep it up. Well, you keep it up by making sure that you check out the program coming up at the museum on the film of Junior Bonner. Okay, back to the final part of the story. We're going to get the rest of the story right now. And again, thank you for your time and attention.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. We're having a grand afternoon here talking with Wendy and Brad Courtney about the 2026 edition of Prescott's Doc HolliDaze. It's going to be held August 14th to the 16th. Headquarters at the Hacienda. The forum will be held at the Elks Theater in downtown. Wendy, just before the break here, you were talking a little bit about your website and some details that people should know if they want to sign up, where they should stay, the prices, etc. Let's get into some of the details here.
So PrescottTombstoneConnection.org is our website, and just go to events and you can purchase your tickets. The Elks Theater, the Wild West History Forum at the Elks Theater on Saturday, August 15th is kind of a all-day deal. It starts at 9. There is a lunch break from 12 to 1:30.
Is it lunch on your own?
Lunch on your own, unless you would like to purchase. We are having a catered lunch across the street at the Hacienda Inn's Marina Room.
That's helpful for those who just
yes, and just go over there. Our speakers will be over there.
Keep
if
the
you want to
conversation
talk
going.
to them, that kind of thing. But we do need to sell those in advance because we have to let them know how many people will be.
Is there a deadline?
August 13th, 12th or 13th, I believe.
Okay, so
people
can keep their schedule open until almost the last minute.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then, lunch break, and then the forum will actually be over with at 3:30. At 4 o'clock, if anybody wants to go over to...
And we're keeping the herd on time this year because you've got things scheduled
Yes,
after 3:30, right? Have to keep people everybody knows.
Yeah, nobody gets to go over their time. They only get to talk for so many minutes.
Right. I'm the timekeeper. I'm the MC. I've got to keep this. Brad, do I get a badge? Do I get a badge to keep this?
You are the badge
And
man.
you have the
I'm going to find my badge.
predecessor, but what do you call it the other way around? Ron Williams will be helping us enforce that.
Oh,
the
that's good.
constable.
So Stuart Rosebrook is our MC. Ron, the constable, is our enforcer.
Sergeant of Arms. We will make sure that Ron is there with the hook. All right.
So then after that, again, the dedication for J.D. Kinnear out at the Pioneers Home Cemetery. That evening, starting at 6 o'clock, we have Doc's birthday party and whiskey and cigar tasting, also in the Marina Room at the Hacienda Inn. And that is, if you want to just go to that is $75. That will include a buffet dinner. We will have Sky Daddy Conwell as our singing entertainment. Brad is going to do a little talk on Kate.
Yep.
And it's going to be awesome. Old Havana Cigar Lounge.
That's out on the patio there, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And then indoors is the entertainment.
Yes.
All right.
We've got a photographer. It's just going to be a blast.
Did you already say whiskey tasting?
Whiskey tasting and cigar tasting.
Yeah.
We'll have a few little samples of whiskey, and then if you like the whiskey that you have tasted, then you can go over to the no host bar and purchase that from.
I like it. And you just mentioned Kate. I think that part of this evening has to be dedicated to Kate, and I just want to bring her into the conversation again because I think from the beginning, the conversations that Brad and I have had and the constable about Doc HolliDaze and Kate have circled around the importance of her role to the story and why Doc was here in Prescott and how they got here. And so earlier we were talking about whose diary was referenced in Gary Roberts' landmark biography, The Life and Legend Doc HolliDaze. And so just so happened to have it here on my bookshelf. And I thought we would turn to, I just so happened to have the page marked in the footnotes. These are in the footnotes of Gary Roberts' chapter called Cowtowns and Pueblos, which this chapter is one of the most detailed, chronicling how Doc HolliDaze and Kate made their way from Las Vegas, New Mexico to Prescott, Arizona, where this story begins.
And we did the math. Gary Roberts, 15% of his book is endnotes.
Well, the endnotes are brilliant.
It's a work in itself.
Yeah. And in the endnotes, he quotes Kate Elder Cummings' Mazanovich typescript, and in it, Kate remembers. I love this because it tells so much about how they traveled in those days, which was going from the Santa Fe Trail to the Beale Wagon Road, and they had to go through Zuni. That's why there's also so many photographs at Zuni by traveling photographers at that time. She wrote, "When we left Las Vegas, New Mexico, our party consisted of Wyatt Earp and his wife, Maddie, my husband and myself," that's Kate referring to herself and Doc HolliDaze, "Jim Earp and his stepdaughter. Doc and I rode in Wyatt Earp's wagon." This was a real road trip, wasn't it? They were in a buckboard. Imagine traveling on that road.
Very uncomfortable.
No.
She wrote, "We had to put on our guard while in New Mexico because the Warm Springs Apaches were on the warpath led by their famous war chief Victorio. We camped for 2 days close to the Zuni village near the Arizona line. It was during our trip from Las Vegas to Prescott that Doc and Wyatt became such good friends, which meant the end of the happiness we had enjoyed ever since our marriage. Kate Elder." And also referenced Kate Cummings and Mazanovich typescript, page 10. I think, you get into the details there, but as a historian, when I read that endnote, it just there's so many bells that went off, and it's so important. Researchers measuring the importance of diaries, and there it is, Big Nose Kate describing their trip. Never, if ever, rarely depicted in film or television, and rarely referenced in biographies of Wyatt's trip to Arizona. But so important because Kate's right there at the beginning of the story.
Right. And you can't tell Doc's story about Kate and vice versa, but just so people know, that's actually going to be my topic during my talk about Kate, is the pursuit of her story in the Pioneers' Home.
I'm looking forward to that.
Mazanovich, because that's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, Brad. And I'm really glad that you're doing that because it's reflective of your passion for finding the details in the story. It's telling the full story, and it reflects the type of stories that are being told at this forum, and I think why so many people are coming here, because it's, the mainstream stories, we're always uncovering new materials. This is what Peter Brand drives him in his research in trying to tell a fuller story of the lives of these men and women who surround these legendary characters that have been celebrated so much. But Wendy, tell us a little bit about some of the other special things that are going to happen that weekend. Is it when the party's over, Saturday night? Is that it? Everyone just disappears? Or something? What's going on Sunday?
Sunday we have a walking history tour. We have 4 well-known local historians. It will be Bradley G. Courtney, Brenda Cusick, Drew Desmond, and Christopher Gillis. We'll do a walking history tour for downtown Prescott and go through and say this happened here, and this is why. We do have Corey Allen. He is a Doc impersonator and a gunfighter down in Tombstone, and so he comes up and is our official Doc.
And gets into character the whole time.
And yeah, he's awesome. And he also shares a birthday with Doc. So we're going to do a birthday cake for him on Saturday night, and we'll sing happy birthday to him.
And again, right now, if someone out there is listening to this podcast and they want more information, let's tell people about that website again.
Prescott Tombstone Connection.org.
Was that Prescott TombstoneConnection.org, you said?
Yes.
.org, Prescott Tombstoneconnection.org.
Org.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a
Yes.
nonprofit organization, and all your profits this year go to benefit the Wild West History Association.
And Charlotte Hall Museum.
Well, we are very grateful for that, and being able to be part of this for the third year in a row. You know, it's a real honor, and telling the fuller story. You know, I think that Prescott over the years has a much deeper and richer story on so many layers in its influence in the West. And in many ways, it was more than willing over time to let Tombstone and other cities like that take front and center. But Prescott's right in the middle of our, the growth of the American West. And, there's great reasons that Theodore Roosevelt organized part of the Rough Riders right here in Prescott, Arizona. He knew the character of the men and women of this area and their courage and what it took to build a territory here.
And don't forget Fort Whipple.
And, of course, Fort Whipple. And people there that weekend, Fort Whipple is open on Friday and Saturday for guests of your forum if they'd like to go out there and tour it, or if they get here early.
Wonderful.
If you want to know more about this event, it's also listed on our website at charlottehallmuseum.org. Go to charlottehallmuseum.org and go to events, and you'll see Doc HolliDaze listed on our website, and you'll learn more about it there. And if you come to town early, please come on over to Charlotte Hall. Let me know you're here as part of the forum, and we'll give you a special treat when you come here to the museum. Our libraries and archives, if you are coming here to Prescott and you want to do research, go online to charlottehallmuseum.org and make an appointment. We are open Wednesday to Saturday, but we have very particular hours, and it's most important that you make an appointment. So if you're coming early or you're staying afterwards, we're not back open for research until Wednesday. So come a couple of days early, come to the campus, and do some research at our libraries and archives. Brad, you can tell folks that we've got the frontline information on Arizona territorial history.
And I've called, ever since I started researching Prescott for my books, I was just amazed, and I came to find that I truly believe that Prescott's the heart and center, the soul of Arizona territorial history, Arizona history, period. It's in some ways all centered right here. The crossroads of all history leads to Prescott as well.
Well, thank you both, Wendy and Brad, for doing so much to bring the story of Prescott, the importance and elevating the importance of studying and researching, documenting our history and our heritage, keeping our Western history and our American history alive, especially in America's 250 as we celebrate 250 years of our great country. And forums like this are exactly what Celebrating America is all about. Look forward to having you both back on Arizona Roundup very soon. And Brad, I'm looking forward to reading your new book. And Wendy, thank you for all your hard work and leadership in making this a special weekend.
Thank you, Stuart.
All right. We'll see you next week on Arizona Roundup. Stuart Rosebrook at Charlotte Hall Museum.